Like,
Yes, because I did get my packet this morning, and there were several empty folders. So those are
yes, yes.
oh,
So those important folder document like these with a little checklist, those are for you. You can, it's kind of however you want to do it. That's how I did it.
okay, okay,
You can tape those to the front of the actual folder. And as you're pulling together those documents, you can check those off. I was just trying to simplify it on how you organize it, but it's totally up to you. So if you want to do it completely different, that's totally fine. It was just a
absolutely.
recommendation. You're
Thank you.
welcome. Okay. And if you put a note, a message in the chat, and I don't get to it right away, I'm not ignoring you. It's just hard to share this and look at the chat. So I'll look at that towards the end. Okay. So here's just a little bit around the weekly topics. This used to be a 6-week course, but I've condensed it down to 4. I think the only downside to that is that you have more in the plan of attacks each week. So if, I know life gets crazy, you have family, you may be taking care of your parent, whatever the case may be, give yourself some grace. And just if you go beyond the 4 weeks, that's absolutely fine. Just try to mark it on your calendar to get some of this stuff done. So this is just a breakdown on what we'll be covering each week. Let's see. Okay. So if you want to review, pull out your emergency plan document. It has emergency plan at the top and it says this information is for. I thought this was important to include as part of this program because if there was ever an emergency, would your family actually know what to do? And if your kids or loved ones weren't with you, what would they do? Especially in situations where phones or computers may not be accessible. Um, does your family know, or do you know how you would get in contact with your family? Um, so first thing, I actually tested this. I have an iPhone, so I went through the directions this morning just to make sure this is still how you do it. I can't speak for Android, but I pulled the information off the actual Android website, if you will. So I haven't heard that it hasn't worked, but I think it's very important for you to add your emergency information to your phone, because if there was ever an emergency um, and you had any allergies or you needed emergency contacts, you had people you needed to be contacted because of your emergency, whatever the case may be, it's good to have all that stuff in there, especially thinking about people who have chronic diseases, diabetes, allergies, all of that. And this can also, even when your phone is locked, people can access that information. I'm not going to go through this line by line. I will send this to you probably tomorrow at some point. But this is how you add your emergency contact information to your iPhone. And I've included here directions on how to add it to your Android. If you have kids or maybe parents, I know for my mom, I still have to teach her how to open up, how to send picture messages. And so this is something I had to work with her on in case there was ever an emergency, that whenever they dialed 911, that I would be contacted. So the emergency SOS, this is just a universal code, international code to signal an urgent need for help. Um, and by using this on your phone, it will automatically call 911. And the beauty of having your emergency contacts noted in your phone, and you can add multiple people in those situations, those that you have listed as an emergency contact, they're automatically notified that there's an emergency, and it will actually send you send your emergency contacts your current location. So say something happened, maybe I was out eating lunch and something happened to me that required them to call 911. And they had my sister and a friend as an emergency contact. It's automatically going to notify them to say, Nan's at Chopped on Park Road. And then it's going to send them updates when they take me to the hospital to know what hospital I'm going to, so forth and so on. So that's another great thing of adding your emergency contact information to your phone. And then anytime you change locations, they are updated throughout that process. Here's how to do it on the iPhone. I did test it. I just didn't actually dial emergency SOS because they do frown upon that. But it does work. And then for Android, there is a countdown. And again, I pulled this from the actual website, so it should be the most up to date and accurate. Okay. I know I kind of went through that portion quickly, but you can go back and reference that tomorrow whenever I send you the PowerPoint on how to do that. So if you want to go ahead and go back and reference your emergency plan document, let me pull mine. So I had in here, I thought it was important to communicate with your family or loved ones around if there was ever a fire or something like that that required you to get out of the house very quickly. Where would your family go? And it could be as simple as, we're going to go to the tree outside by the mailbox, just so they know if there's an emergency that happens inside the house and you need to get out, where's the central location that everyone would meet. And then also for out of neighborhood, so say there was an incident where you couldn't get into your neighborhood for whatever reason, and you need to go somewhere, would it be, would you meet in the parking lot at the CVS near your house, or whatever the location would be? I think that's important to notate. You have in there your emergency numbers. So also thinking about, if you have older parents who maybe live by themselves, or someone's coming in to check on them, it's important for them to have this information. Or I'm thinking, I have 2 kids. If I'm gone away for a weekend and something happens, then the babysitter is going to need to know who to call and what to do. And then also, so I have in here where you can notate your emergency number. So your primary and secondary emergency contact, which may be similar to what you have in your phone. It's good to notate a neighbor, especially if you're close with your neighbors and maybe there's something that you need. The poison control for police and fire. For the non-emergency, that's just the closest location to your home. And I added the poison control number here under the emergency contacts in the PowerPoint. And then the primary care physician, the preferred hospital if there's an emergency, pharmacy if you have a dog, the emergency vet, what the plan would be for the dogs. If you have a first aid kit, where that is located. I looked on Amazon today and they usually range good first aid kits around $15 or more. And then fire extinguishers. This, where the little hand is, this links to the National Fire Protection Association around what type of fire extinguishers to get and in what locations of the house. So you have extinguishers that are classified as A, B, and C. And so sometimes if you need to keep a fire extinguisher by your kitchen, you may need a different type of fire extinguisher than if it was upstairs. And so that provides that information. And I'll include that in my follow-up as well, in case you don't see this whenever I send the follow-up to this PowerPoint. Let's see. Also include on that back page, it has household emergencies. So if anything happens, if you have a leak in the house or, something happens, the commode's overflowing or the security system, something goes wonky with it. It's important for the people who are taking care of the house or your family to know where to access that information. And then we have on the next page is your emergency home contact information. So the emergency contact, that could be, I originally had, your parents, the parent one, parent two, and best contact information, but thinking people who may not have kids or maybe it's for their parents. So that's just a standard emergency contact. Who could they call? And again, that's probably similar to what is on your phone. But the important thing here to note is around the kids. So there's six kids. So if you have more than 6 kids, just shoot me an email and I'll send you another form. So in case of emergency, who would be the emergency caregiver, the school daycare name, pediatrician, their date of birth, any diet or feeding restrictions. So if you're not there and someone else is taking care of your kids that may not take care of them day to day, they're going to need to know that information. It's very, very, very important to have those discussions with your kids and let them know if there's ever an emergency, your Aunt Anna or whoever is going to be coming to pick you up. So they're not caught off guard. So just be sure you're having those conversations with your children and then also making sure that they are noted as your emergency contacts at the kids' school is also very important. So this is good. Like I've told people for some of this, like for this emergency plan, since there's no personal information on here. I mean, you could keep that in a folder or like, on the back door of your laundry room or in a central location for anyone to access if they needed it. Work emergency contacts. I just added this in here because when I created this program a couple years ago, I actually went and looked at mine. I actually didn't have anyone listed. So that's just in something important in case something ever happened at work, they would know who to contact because they may not have access to your phone. And then here is kind of an emergency checklist for what you can do between now over the next couple of weeks. This doesn't all have to be done by next week, but in completing that emergency plan document, adding your emergency contact information to your phone, you can, and this says it in the directions earlier in the PowerPoint, but you have to make sure that you set up notifications for your emergency contacts to be notified, and you'll see it on there. Ensure that you have an emergency contact list with the city. Confirm or update your children's school emergency contact. If you don't have a first aid kit, I recommend at least one for home and one for each car. Fire extinguisher, they do recommend at least one for each floor and especially one close to your kitchen area. I did add in here, so I teach CPR from time to time, and they added this to the crash kits probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and they're called LifeVacs. They literally look like toilet plungers, and it's for if you ever have someone who's choking, you would lay them on a firm flat surface, and basically you would seal. You have this plunger, if you will, and you put it has a little mask on it. You put it over their mouth and you basically plunge, and people swear by it. You can actually YouTube or Google LifeVac and they'll show you real life incidences. It's pretty crazy. They run, I think, around now between $70 and $80, but that just may be something helpful to have at home just in case. I would recommend if you do decide to get this, that you get it from the actual LifeVac website, because sometimes you can order them off Amazon, but they're not the real life Life Facts, you can get them a lot cheaper and they don't work nearly as well. So I order a ton of stuff off Amazon, but for this, I would definitely order it from the actual website. Like I said just a few minutes ago, be sure you post a copy of your emergency document in a central place, communicating with your household members, making sure everyone, including your children, know how to call 911. And then I think it's always helpful to review and update your emergency plan document at least once a year, or whenever that information changes. So moving on to the life planning organizer. This week, and then I know this week was kind of just an overview. We will get much more in the weeds starting next week, and especially in weeks 3 and 4, because that really gets into the estate planning aspect of this program. But your plan of attack for this week is to complete the emergency plan document that we just reviewed, and then complete pages 1 through 5 of the life planning organizer. So this is like pretty, your personal information, your medical providers and advisors, important contacts, any social media, because thinking, if something ever happens to you, you may want to shut that stuff off if you have social media. And a lot more people are recommending digital or adding digital power of attorneys, because there's so many usernames and passwords, and you got social media and all that stuff. So that's included in here. It has your banking information, credit card accounts, your real estate stuff. And so complete pages 1 through 5 for this week, and the emergency plan document. You can go back and reference the emergency checklist after this on just some other things you may want to consider for this week. Before I jump in, I know we're at time, but I can stay on for a few more minutes and answer any questions that you may have. I didn't mention this initially. I think the not being able to get on initially threw me. But I think this is very important. Figuring out what your why is and why you're doing this. And everyone's why may look a little bit differently. I know for me personally, I want to know if something ever happened to me, my kids are going to be well taken care of. And I lost my dad last year, unfortunately, and he had been sick for a while. And I remember, probably about a year before he passed, I was the power of attorney, and I found out that he really wanted to be cremated. And that's just not something that we really talked about in our family. And so I think it's just very important for people to know what your wishes are. And there's a lot of work to be done whenever we're not here anymore to get our financial affairs in order. And it's a lot less, it's a already tragic time, and trying to taking some of that stress off them just gives me some peace. And so I think whenever you get overwhelmed by this and the things that you're having to put together and pull together, on top of all the other life stuff you have going on, just remember why you're doing it, because it is a lot of information. It can get overwhelming. So I think that's just important to note. But I will stop there and answer any questions that you may have. We are a quiet bunch tonight. It is already 8 o'clock. Everybody's worked a full day. Then I will go ahead and conclude us for tonight. And then if you have any questions that pop up, feel free to give me a shout. Okay. All right. Well, y'all have a great week, and I will be talking with you soon.
Good night. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.